Thank you so much, Christian. Let me start by saying what a great pleasure it is for me to be here and an honor to follow two really distinguished speakers. So thank you so much for coming to hear about the bank's experience. Unfortunately, I do have a PowerPoint presentation, so my apologies for that. I'll try and not stick to it. I'm going to make three broad points, and I think they echo a lot of what has been said already. First, open data can be challenging and difficult, but perhaps it's less difficult and less expensive and less resource intensive than some of you think it might be. It might be easier than you think, at least some aspects of it. The second thing is, while transparency, I think, is a wonderful objective and one that we should all completely get behind, and the bank actually has, the real value of open data comes from the use and reuse of data. So you do not want to stop at transparency. You have to work really hard to get people to use your data. And application developers and researchers are obvious audiences for that, but really have to start to reach out to non-technical audiences. A lot of conversation around open data tends to be very technical in nature and limits the audience for open data. And you have to work really hard to expand that audience. And number three, critical point, I think, is you have to make data social, right? It's good to publish data, but you actually have to start making it easy for people to share that data, to discuss that data, to have conversations about their data, and actually to also engage in participating in the data process. You don't want to just be a publisher of data. You don't just be publish information. You really want to engage people in the use, reuse, and discussions and conversations. Also, in fact, at the bank, we're now beginning to think about data partnerships in which we don't just publish data, but actually help you publish data with us in areas of common interest. So with those points out of the way, let me quickly start by showing you a quick video, right? And then we'll go to the presentation itself. I hope the sound is on. So that gives you a sense of some of our thinking behind the work we're doing, some of the philosophical approaches we've taken to the work we're doing, really focused on social data, reuse, letting people control the data consumption rather than just publish data, pretty critical for us. Some of the drivers, obvious questions, things that all of you are probably thinking about at this point, questions you're all familiar with. How much money is going to a specific project? Where is the bank spending its money or your organization spending its money? How do you actually tell people about the work we're doing? How do people find out about the value of what we're doing? How do we actually tell them about the impact of the work we're doing? Good or bad, I think it's good to get it out there. And then how do we actually engage them in these conversations? Development, we really want this to be a two-way street, not just the bank going out and actually doing development, but making people partners in development. How do we actually make that happen? And can data be an answer to some of those challenges? We think we have some of the answers. World Bank Finance, I'm going to talk to you a bit more about that. Obviously not all the answers, but that's some of the questions that drive us at this point as we talk about this. So the story, I'm going to tell you about the bank's larger open data initiative, and then come back to the financial data piece and tell you how that fits in and how that might not. Everybody, I think a couple of speakers before me mentioned this as well. Leadership is a key driver for changing the bank. We had good support in the beginning. Our busy president, huge support of open data. Last April, we launched the open data program supported by him. We published a huge amount of research data as the first step. So what the bank knows, we put that out there around April of last year. The vision really was to actually go from putting the information out there to actually getting people to use it. So again, quoting RBZ here, stressing the important leadership here, put information out there, but make people, give them the ability to actually use it and become partners actually creating data and talking to you about data. So RBZ was out there up front talking about this, and he's been a huge source of support for us in the bank and has actually helped make conversations around open data much easier than they might otherwise have been. Our vision really, open data is just the starting point of a larger process. It's good to be transparent, put information out there, but actually get people involved in creating information out there, so we call open knowledge, become partners in creating information, and then open solutions, help people think through what development means to them. So open data is just the first step in a larger development approach. We have a formal policy around this, access information. The key rule there, everything is open, right, with some exceptions. Right, so we have a standard policy around this. When people in the bank work, they expect their work to become publicly available very soon, if not right away. We have some examples. People know about those, some exceptions, but generally speaking, that's the default policy. With the policy, we went from pretty boring, difficult to use information to pretty, I think, interesting, exciting presentations of information. The bank actually, historically, and some might argue against it, but we've done historically a pretty good job disclosing information. So putting information out there traditionally has not been a problem. It was either expensive to get to because it was commercially available, so you had to buy the information, or it was just difficult to use or find. Our website was a mess, it still is to a great degree. It was just impossible to find the information, right? Impossible to actually get to it, impossible to combine with other pieces of information out there to reuse it, analyze it. So I think open data sort of makes some of those questions go away, makes some of those access issues easier to solve. And of course, with the policy, we opened up information we traditionally had not. Actually, if you see some of the information out here, on the left, the projects portal, very excited to actually publish a huge amount of information in this last week itself. All the projects are out there, all the financing is out there, our results are out there now. We have evaluation reports in the last 60 odd years out there now. So you can actually go to data.worldbank.org and go to project section. I just go to worldbank.org, click on projects and operations, and you'll see essentially at the project level a lot of information. In fact, at the transaction level, you'll see a lot of information. So when was money paid, how much money paid? So you see a lot of that. The actual result indicators, what was achieved, what wasn't, and the evaluation reports, if I actually do a good job or not, is out there. Traditional stuff like microdata, so survey information is up there as well. Mapping, geocoding, a lot of geodata, maps.worldbank.org. Encourage all of you to go and look at that. All the projects now, at least the vast majority of them are now geocoded, so you can see location information for most of our projects at this point. We've heard lots of talk about DAC and ODA. The bank actually helps manage aid flows, which publishes a huge amount of OECD information, so go and take a look at that as well. We are happy to be among the first publishers to IIT. Very, very happy to support that initiative as well. There's just some examples, but the bank actually, I think, is doing a reasonable job putting a lot of information out there. A lot is out there already, much more is coming. I want to speak to you specifically about financial data, which can be very, very sensitive. When we start talking about this, there were concerns, the usual concerns. The information is not accurate, people will misuse it, you can't maintain it, it's expensive to do, all of that. But I'm happy to say that we actually have a finances site now, so finances.worldbank.org. Go take a look at that as well. What we're doing there, we're publishing all our monthly loans, credits, and drawn statements, so you can actually see our portfolio as of last month. We update that every month. We put our budget, the bank's budget itself, online last week, right? So we have data for the last 5 months. We actually have some indicator data for the next 2 years as well. We've begun to push some trust fund data as well. The bank manages a lot of trust funds on behalf of the donors, so we put a lot of that out there as well. The bank's own financial statements, our balance sheets, our investments, the ratings of our bonds, all of that are out there as well. So a lot of information out there. What is most interesting, though, is not just the fact that it's out there, but that you can actually slice and dice this data. So you, everybody in this room, non-technical people like me, can actually go into the site. You can filter the data, you can visualize it, You can put it on Facebook. Actually, let me see if I can show it to you, if I have a window, if I have time for it. Sorry, my typing is not the best. But while that comes up, if I can show it to you, you will see how easy it is to actually slice and dice, filter data. So you can actually go and look at the donors. You can see how much money they give to the bank. The video I showed you is actually here. There's a lot of features, but let me go straight to some of our country pages. I'll try and finish quickly. It is not helping me. I do have only a few minutes. But let's look at the countries the bank works with. If I show you, let's say, I'm trying to find a country that has, let's take India, for instance. So you can see the bank's portfolio in real time here. So summary of active loans is here. So this is live data. So as we update it, every month we update the data set behind it, which is the IBRD statement of loans here. The visualizations are updated automatically. You can see India is also an IDA country, so India gets loans from the bank, but also gets credits and grants. So that's a distinction of IDA and IBRD, so you can see some of that. India actually gives money as well. India is a donor as well. So the contributions the banks makes to certain types of funds is here. India receives money as well. You can see data sets if I go into the actual data set. And there are many other ways of getting into it. But if I just go from the graphic here itself, I want to see data behind it. This is the data set. Eventually, it will be the data set. This is the raw data behind it. I can filter it. I can say, you know what, I'm interested in, let's say CGIR. The data set filters immediately on the spot. I can add more filters. I can say, well, show me what Germany does with CGIR. So this is Germany's contributions, right? So pretty easy to use, all very sort of end-user oriented. I can save it. So if I save it, anybody else can come and see my visualization. So people don't have to create it. They can come and rate it. They can visualize it. So if I wanted to visualize this thing, I just click visualize here. And this may not be a great example, but just let's just I want to make a, I don't know, a pie chart out of this. Let's say fund name. Actually, let's say donor name, because that's what my data is. And I say amount in USD. And I say apply. I should get a pie chart, right? I can save it on the site. This is probably not the best example, but here you have it. I can save it. I can put this in Facebook or Twitter. I can do interesting things with it, right? I don't want to spend too much time on this, but just to tell you that the idea is to publish, but let people use the information as well. I'm running out of time very rapidly. So like I said, lots of information. Go take a look. There's tons of stuff out there. Very excited to actually announce a mobile app as well. An iPhone and iPad version is coming out as we speak. It's in the Apple queue. So it could come out today, tomorrow, we'll see. But we have a web version available right now. Let me see if I can show you that very, very quickly. It's not meant to work in Explorer, so it might not. But the basic idea here is that you can actually, okay, so it's not meant for Explorer. So it's not going to look very nice. Come on. But I can go to any country. Let me go to Algeria quickly. You can see sort of the bank's portfolio there. You can see how much money has been committed to the country, how much money has been dispersed, how much money has been paid back. You can see the projects that are going on at this point. You can go into a part itself. You can see financial information about the project. You can do interesting things, a lot of them, but just want to show you. You can put this on Facebook and Twitter, but just sort of going about citizen engagement, you can actually start reporting about the project. So this is just the start of a process, but you can report data issues, but you can also report fraud and corruption issues. So you see something in part you want to actually let the bank know about, you can call us, you can email us, specific to the project, right? So just the start of what we hope will be sort of a deeper engagement with the people that we work with, but it's an example of the kind of thinking that we have at this point. It's available offline as well, so if you have an iPhone, and you're in the middle of nowhere, you actually have access to all this data. It's also geo-aware, so you can actually look at projects around me. You can do a whole bunch of parameters too. So it's pretty interesting there. So like I said, following and sharing is pretty important. You can follow projects, so you can say, well, I'm interested in this project. So every time there's an update to the project, you're going to get an email about that, or you get an SMS message about that. So that's pretty important. I talked to you about reporting fraud. Let me quickly talk about what else is coming. And this applies to the financial data, but also to sort of bank as a whole. Number one, multilingual, I think, is absolutely critical. You have to talk to people in their languages. So mobile app will soon be in 7 languages. The bank's open data site itself right now is available in multiple languages. The financial data only in English language, but hopefully we'll have more languages too. More data sets coming along as we speak. So very excited to announce the evaluation data from last week. We have lots of geolocations. We actually want to start getting sub-national locations as well. We want to support more platforms. It's important to actually go beyond what we in the room might use to actually go to what people out there use. We're supporting some platforms, but we want to actually expand that to many more. Data partnerships, very, very important. We actually helped the government of Kenya go live with their open data site recently. We were one of their many partners. We can't take all the credit for it, but we are the people sort of helping them do that. We're actually trying to work with other country governments as well. We're also trying to publish some expenditure data as well. So lots of work going on. And more citizen participation, that's going to be very critical. We have some social features at this point, but want to actually delve much, much deeper into that. That I think is pretty critical. So I will repeat that. Transparency is wonderful, but you really don't want to stop there. You have to go well beyond that. Otherwise, it's useful, but it could be much, much, much more useful. Let me stop that. I think I'm out of time. You can download the app. The URL is here. Finances.worldbank.org is the financial data site. Data.worldbank.org is the open data site. So go and take a look at that too. And especially look at the price section. Lots of really, really useful information out there. And the mobile app, if you want to use on a website, financesapp.worldbank.org. And on Twitter, hashtag WBFinances or hashtag World Bank or hashtag Open Data. You'll see lots of information out there. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Sorry to rush you a little bit.
Yeah, thank you very much. You were quite humble about how actually is so far the success of the website. I just read the other day that you have up to 15,000 page impressions on this data, this part of the website. Basically, you have now more visitors to this open data page than to the actual website from the World Bank. Can you tell us a bit more about what is the feedback from your audience? I mean, who is it who looks at this data?
Yeah, actually, strangely enough, the bank's open data site now is more popular than our jobs page. That historically was the most popular page on the bank website, the jobs page, apart from the home page. But now the open data site actually is the most popular. We've had more than 6 million people come to the site in the last 1 year. Tremendous amount to use. The reception actually, fortunately for us, generally very positive. We've had lots of positive press reaction. Really good article in New York Times a couple of months ago, but we've been covered widely around the world. The financial data site itself, just about a month old now, but tremendous action on Twitter and Facebook at this point. What really excites me personally, though, is not just the fact that people are coming to the site is very popular, but actually doing things for the data. I think that's been tremendously useful. We had the apps development contest last year. Lots of participation, lots of support, lots of really good applications. I guess one example of one sort of measure of success, most application developers were from the south, so to speak. Africa is where most of the entries came from. But also in the open data site, we have people actually slicing and dicing data and actually sharing and visualizing information as well as we speak. Not traditional behaviors in open data science, but we're seeing a lot of social activity in the site, which is hugely, hugely interesting. We really want to reach non-traditional, non-technical, NGO-type, media-type audiences. And the response so far has been pretty good. We need to work a lot on this. We need to get the word out a lot more, but so far so good.
So we've had a lot of people raise their hands in the meantime, and just for having Minji not run so much, I'd like to take the lady over there in the far corner first, and then we've had the 2 gentlemen here in the middle after that.
Good morning. Thank you very much. My name is Annalisa Mauro. I'm working with the International Land Coalition. We have online a portal that is called the Land Portal, and we integrated some of World Bank data thanks to the APIs system. So thank you very much for making this open data
Thank you for
available
using it.
to our portal. My question is, the World Bank is a group in the sense that there are many sisters associations, no? And so I was wondering if other institutions such as the IFC, the International Finance Corporation, it's so open as World Bank in providing such type of detailed information to the public.
Well, yes and no. IBRD, which is the sort of the agency that works with governments, has been extremely open. So pretty much everything I showed you, which is about 80% of the bank's business, is IBRD data. The good news, though, is that IFC, for instance, right, which works more for private sector organizations, and they have slightly more, limited access rules, largely because a lot of the information is commercially sensitive. But there is a movement already to publish some of the data as well. In fact, I am speaking to some people in IFC to publish their financial information, and we remain optimistic that you will see information from other parts of the bank as well very, very soon. Conversations are underway. IBRD, though, is 80% of the bank, so I think we're largely covered, but IFC is a big, it's the next step.
One comment, there was mentioned the abbreviation, the world of abbreviations, API. Prasanna, can you quickly tell us what an API is?
Sure, I'll give you a non-technical explanation. It stands for Application Programming Interface, but in my terms, the layman's terms, what it really means is that it lets developers building applications connect to your data source in real time and sort of take your data and use that in their applications. So a very, very simple example is all of us book airline tickets. When you go to Travelocity or Expedia or other sites that you might be using here, they're connecting to source APIs from airlines, and that's pulling in data to your website in real time. So a good way of sort of sharing data with our application developers.
Thank you. Great.
I think we should make that maybe we'll have one tech test question for everybody from a development corporation and one development test question for everybody who's with a techie background. But because I think actually it's really important to explain these basics to each other and really understand them. 3 questions we're going to take before the coffee break. Where Felix, you raised your hand. Please, can you do so again so the microphone finds you? Please keep. Okay, then we have 4 actually. Please try to keep them short.
Okay, as a non-technician, I'm not sure if I got an answer to my question already. So my question was about how regularly data is updated. It seems that some data is available in real time. So it gets drawn into the website's web database from other databases of the World Bank. Is that correct?
Yes, but not completely. Right. The bank, because of information security issues, sometimes it can be problematic to connect to other bank systems to publish it externally as well. So all the development data that you see actually is coming through an API. So we use our own APIs to publish our development data. But if financial data you see, we actually upload that manually. Right? It's extremely simple. It's as simple as actually sending an email, which is why I started by saying that actually open data might not be as difficult as you might think it is. The financial data is typically updated. The loan data, for instance, is updated every month. It takes about 1 minute to update it. It's like I said, uploading an email attachment is what the process is. So some automatic, some manual.
Okay, thank you.
And the gentleman next. Oh, you have another one.
I have another one, and I forgot to introduce myself. My name is Felix Söhler. I'm an independent consultant. The second question was, how do you resolve the issue of entering results into databases? Do you, as a bank with a lot of research capacities, do you have a standard solution for this?
We're moving towards a standard solution. Sort of not just about results, but generally, I think one thing that I'm sort of more and more convinced about is I don't want to actually add to people's workloads to create open data. You really want data to come from the work they do, to flow from the work they do. So for instance, just to go back to mapping data, just giving an example, when we published that data last year, we actually had to go back and look at all the historical records and manually enter all the geodata. But going forward, actually, this point onwards, a project process demand of our task team leaders to actually enter geolocations as part of the regular work they do. It's the same for results. The idea is that this is part of your job, just put the information in, we'll pull it out, rather than go back and do it separately.
Thank you very much, Zoltan Ferenc, Better Place Lab. My question actually concerns your last point. You mentioned that one key challenge is not only getting the data, but enabling users to understand it. And there has been considerable discussion about geocoding and mapping and how it helps to understand it in geographical terms, what development aid concerns. And you also mentioned mapping for results. Can you tell us a few examples for us to understand what relevance that has for transparency and aid effectiveness?
Sure. So a traditional, a classic problem with development work, and many of you might be able to relate to it, is it can be very abstract for the average person. So the person on the ground, they just don't understand what's happening around them, how does it impact them. And mapping can be a really effective way of sort of communicating with them to a degree. So if you can tell somebody that near you, in these locations, X, Y, and Z projects are going on, and so much money has gone to them, so much money is coming to them, so much money is repaid, or other aspects of it, here are the results, it just becomes much more meaningful. An example we use, for instance, is in Kenya, if you look at the map, if you sort of look at the location of the bank's education projects, and if you compare or contrast that with sort of literacy levels in Kenya, you can actually see a bit of a gulf there. Many education projects are actually in areas with literacy levels a little higher than the norm. That tells you something. It tells the bank something as well about future projects. If you look at our road projects and sort of map them, you can see their locations, and you can get a sense of sort of what areas are better served, what areas aren't better served. And of course, just knowing, and I think geo-coding is important, but geo-awareness through mobile apps is even more important, I think. Just knowing what's around me, what's going on around me, and it's pretty critical as well. So it sort of helps you make sense of development in visually appealing and sensible ways that simple numbers cannot.
The lady, I'm sorry, we're not going to be able to take more questions, but the lady in the front who already has the microphone, please.
I'm Heike Loschmann with the Heinrich Böll Foundation. Prasanna, thank you very much for showing once more what the World Bank has started with this project. Nevertheless, I want to share some impressions. I'm just back from Washington. I attended some of the side events CSO organized around the annual meeting. And one of those was a presentation about fact-finding missions with looking at gendered impact of the West African Chad oil pipeline, which is a huge infrastructure project funded by the World Bank. And this was just one, and I've been attending other meetings also earlier years. So NGOs do actually do great jobs in finding the community link that was discussed earlier here, which is often missing. And there were chilling information about what actually is the impact of the money flows that we can trace now thanks to that project. So I really wonder how can we do the connect and really sort of expand the mandate that you mentioned was like open data is what we do to open data, how we impact people with what we do. And maybe a concrete proposal, because you sidelined with these next steps that there is like also a corner for citizens' participation, and that's not only about socializing the data, but to see how you can really connect the data which are there, maybe also published on websites of groups, but which really belong actually also into the database of the World Bank, to my understanding, about information that is otherwise not in your database, but very, very much links to the impact, and which is really then also a political reflection of certain shortcomings of IT and where we have to really sort of further go to.
Yeah, I could not agree more with you in terms of sort of hearing voices from the ground about the impact of the work we do. Absolutely critical. I don't think we have a magic bullet solution to that at this point, but we're trying very, very hard. And some of the things that we just showed you are manifestations of things we've begun to try. So I presume we were there for the annual meetings last weekend. There was a CSO forum. Civil Society Organizations Forum, sorry, the bank is awash in acronyms, most of which I don't remember myself. Trying to work really, really hard with sort of what we call intermediaries or partners development to take the word out to people, but also hear back from people through these sort of, I guess, intermediary agencies. That's one. Second one is through some of these, and this is not by any means a complete solution, right? But really, really encouraging people to talk about the work the bank does. So it's not so much a question of sort of getting things into a database, but I think it's more important to have conversations, especially in social media right now, about the work the bank does. Social media is immensely powerful, especially in developing countries. And we're actually signaling through our sites and the mobile app the fact that we really want to take this word out and talk about it. Good things we do, the not so great things we do. And we're really hearing people. I actually have somebody dedicated in my team just tracking social media conversations about our work, for instance, right? We hear what people are saying, we try to engage with them, we actually respond to a lot of conversations out there. The reporting feature I showed you is just the first step in what I hope will be a much longer process. So fraud and corruption reporting is just the first step, 3 phones. But we eventually hope people to establish and support communities around the work we do. So right now when you send something, a fraud report, for instance, just comes to us, it could just disappear, right? Eventually we want to really make some of that public as well. Our evaluation reports are public too already. So a lot of effort in that direction, a lot of, I think, signals in that direction, some concrete projects and solutions in that direction. I don't think it does everything, but we're making a start.
Final, please, very brief question, brief reply, please, as well.
I'm Irene Tito. I'm an economic consultant in tourism, and I have a development-orientated question. You mentioned making, not just publishing data, but enabling people to actually use it. That empowerment aspect I find very important. Could you quickly answer my question? How would the World Bank help to empower people?
I think just the fact, if you look at the financial data right out there, right? If you look at traditional open data, it's aimed at developers. So what you do is you publish data, you put an API out there, and application developers can use that to build applications, which I think is immensely powerful. But we have consciously tried to go and reach non-technical audiences. So some things we showed you are things that all of us in this room can try and do ourselves. So we're not just sort of going back to the info dumping point that was made earlier as well. So not just putting it out there, but putting it in a fashion that makes it easy for you to slice and dice or filter the information, to build charts and graphs for yourselves, to actually map some of the information also on the side, and to be able to share it out there, right? So we're trying to expand the audience for the information beyond typical open data audiences to non-technical audiences. The mobile app is an example of sort of making sense of open data too.
Thank you so much, Prasanna. I'm sorry we've had to kind of cut it a bit short, not take all questions. At the same time, we've already run a bit over time because we wanted to take time for questions, but you'll be here for the rest of the day.
Unfortunately not. I'll leave in about the next hour.
But you'll be here for the coffee break. Let me
Sorry.
rephrase. You'll be here for the coffee break.
Yes.
So please use Prasanna's time during the upcoming coffee break to ask any questions you didn't get to ask right now.
And I do have the iPad app on, so in case you want to take a look at that, I can show that to you as well.
Thank you very much. Now.